Welcome, everyone, to a new episode of Theatre Thoughts Podcast. We have a returning guest today, which I'm super stoked to actually meet them in person. We have a composer, lyricist, actor, and singer, currently obsessed with Hades on Nintendo Switch, so I found out. Most recently toured as Catherine Parr in Six the Musical, a role which she originated in Australia in 2019. She also starred in Merrily We Roll Along with the Haze and Papa G in the Australian premiere of Once on This Island. She's a proud recipient of Brand X's live work program in conjunction with the City of Sydney, meaning she's currently living and working on Gadigal country to produce new Australian work, and she's here to talk about the new show, The Lucky Country. It's Vidya Makan!
Hi! Thanks so much for having me.
I'm so excited to actually meet you in person.
Thanks. I'm so stoked to be here.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this show because I've saw recently your reel you're doing online down in Launceston, just going and asking people like, what do you think Australia is? Like, what does it mean to you? And I thought, that's great. That's great marketing.
It was really interesting, like, hearing people's different opinions and also the types of people who would want to even engage and talk with you.
Yeah.
I was definitely surprised by a lot of answers, but, I mean, that's the point of this show. It's about sharing the very, very many voices that we have in this country, in this place that we call Australia.
So I guess the first question to ask is, where did it come from?
That's a big question.
Yeah, it's a bit of a big one.
I think there's a lot of elements that sparked the seed of the show. Part of it was from a place of frustration of, you know, going to the theatre and seeing shows and loving shows, but every time I'd see a person of colour who was Australian on stage, they would very often be a two-dimensional character. Often there was quite racist humour, which was, you know, brought down to, oh, well, that's Aussie humour, which I just think we can do better than that. And we're also, like, we are funny. We can be so much funnier than that.
Yeah.
And also for a love of this place and an exploration of who we are, I really wanted to try and put that down into a show. So I decided to just do that and tackle a very, very small concept, which is national identity.
It's easy to do.
Yeah, exactly. Really easy. So that was like where the seed for the show came from.
Yeah.
But what's been really interesting is researching very, very different viewpoints about what people say about being Australian and just different elements of Australian culture has really broadened my mind. And I think we'll talk a little bit later about like how the show has been developed. Yeah. And that's kind of been a really cool look into us as a nation in like a meta way as well.
Yeah, so, definitely. And I think there's a lot of discussion around that same question, especially in the past recent years. I think mostly around the concept of, you know, the 26, like what does that mean for us as a country and where does our identity go for in terms of that?
Yeah, I kept asking myself, like, how do we be a nation who doesn't dismiss the last 280 years but gains 60,000 years of our identity?
Yeah,
you know?
It's a great way to put it.
And also as a settler perspective, as I'm the child of immigrants from South Africa and originally India, I've also got a settler narrative, but I'm also a person of colour. And then there's this white Australian cultural identity that we have, even though we don't have.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, we have what to me is the most important through line through the narrative of Australian identity, which is our First Nations people and their voice. And what's been cool about The Lucky Country is we've been led by a lot of First Nations artists in that way. So it's a funny piece in that it's a settler piece. It's written by people who aren't First Nations or of this place, but that, you know, we've worked really hard to work with incredible First Nations artists so that we pay a lot of respect and we honour that gorgeous tradition of song and storytelling and dance that has been here for so many years.
You say it so like poignantly and so well put. So I can tell you've thought about this like a lot.
Yeah, for the last 5 years. Yeah.
So I'll just quickly read out like the description of the show. So it's a new Aussie musical for all Aussies. Digging deep into the themes of identity and belonging, The Lucky Country is a heartfelt, widely entertaining and joyful celebration of who we can be as Australians. You summed it up perfectly already. So we meet hilarious all-Aussie characters, grey nomads who find love on a Kentucky tour, World War II veteran, a young refugee, even a Chinese-Australian restaurateur who dreams of life as a Byron Bay nudist. Perfect.
Yeah. Why not?
The Kentucky one's so like poignant to me because I used to tour for Top Deck over
really?
in Europe. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And so whenever I say like Kentucky tour, I just automatically know the person.
So that song was kind of written about this couple who I went on a Katiki tour to Morocco, and this song is set in Morocco with my mate from school. Was like, we're in our 20s. It wasn't a Katiki tour. It was an Intrepid, but same diff,
thing.
We're traveling.
Yeah.
And there was this couple who had just met on Tinder. And they were like in their 60s.
Yeah.
And they were on this tour. And it was really funny because there was one time where I was knocking on their door because we were really close with them.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, do you want to come and, see the marketplace with us? And you heard this like running behind the doors, and then the door opened and she's in a towel and he's like in the bathroom. And I was like, oh my God.
Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Bye. It was so beautiful. Like,
that's so good.
This teenage kind of romance and passion and love. And so it's partly based on them, but also partly based on imagination.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I love that. That's so good. Like the life experiences that you put into a piece of work.
Totally.
I think is insane. So I guess we talked about really briefly about where it came from, but in terms of your writing style, from what I've gathered so far, you have a lot of Australian inspirations that you've used, specifically in terms of the formatting of the songs. So do you want to talk about like what can we kind of expect, or what was your inspiration for that?
So the first draft that I did of the show was back with Front and Centre, who are an incredible Melbourne company. Like, thank you so much for supporting our amazing new work. And that was a very, very different show. It was kind of my take on Australian identity. And a lot of those songs were like, I was doing a lot of Sondheim at the time, a lot of piano music. It was beautiful. But I showed it to Sonya. And, a lot of people will say to you, it's great. But not often will you get people really critiquing your work.
Yeah.
And the ones that do, I think, that's such a gift for a new writer. And I took it to Sonya, who was a mentor for me. She's a colleague, a friend. And I was like, what do you think of this? And she just laid it down really honestly. And she was like, look, you're dealing with a massive, massive subject here. Like I said, a national identity, that's huge.
Yeah.
We need to expand this out if you really want to do it properly. And I went, you are so right. So we went back and we rewrote pretty much most of the songs. There are 2 songs that have pretty much stayed the same.
Okay.
But in order to do that, I wanted to try and encapsulate this idea of nationhood. We talk about how we're like this multicultural nation. That's a big thing that's often said.
Seems like a repetitive like rhetoric, I guess.
For sure. But a part of that is that we have so many different voices and types of people that go beyond even just race.
Yeah.
So I wanted to encapsulate that idea with the genres of the songs that we have in the show. So what has been a nightmare for our orchestrator, Hayden Guire, is that every single song sounds like it's from a completely different musical.
Right.
We have a song about Baker Boy, which sounds like a Baker Boy song.
Yeah.
We have a song about 2 Aussie blokes who were at the footy. There's a little bit of a twist there, which you'll have to come and see the show to find out. But, I listened to a lot of Jimmy Barnes, Farnsey, Cold Chisel for references of that songs. We have references to the Seekers. I actually just did a little playlist of a lot of the songs that we referenced. Like, I listened to the Play School theme for one of the songs.
My God.
There's this Russian choir who are from Mullumbimby called Dostoevsky.
Okay.
Who are fascinating. We have like a 7-minute song about them,
Amazing.
Which is this fun Russian-Australian love fest.
Yeah.
We have a fever dream about all the things in Australia that could kill you, that's done in the style of a Kylie Minogue, like fever dream. So we go through a lot of different styles and different genres. Of course, borrowing from as well, or being inspired from a lot of First Nations artists as well with some of the songs, which I don't want to talk too much about because that to me is the diamond of our show.
Okay.
Which you have to come and check it out.
It's great.
Yeah.
I feel like, I wasn't I'm a big like musical theatre person.
Yeah.
But I wasn't a massive sort of cultural like music head. But only the last couple of years I've been really switching into Triple J. And I feel like I've just developed a great deal of like, I now know them. I know Budgerah. He's awesome,
Right?
We have just all these things that like you seep in.
So much in this country that, is just so much talent. We have so much talent in this country. I think especially in the music scene. It's one of our most incredible industries, I think.
Yeah, and I think the creation of the artist who is a singer and instrument player as well. So what's the term for that? Did you call it just an actor, instrumentalist? There's a term. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'll probably cut that.
I should know it because I'm one of them.
Yeah, you're one of them. But like using that in musicals has just changed what a musical can be.
For sure.
And I think it makes some of the best work as well.
Yeah. Part of our show, which I'm really excited about as well, is we have a yiraki, which is a word for didgeridoo, being played live as well by Billy Mack, who's awesome.
Yeah.
And like, having that live and watching artists connect to that. We had a cultural consultation workshop last year, a cultural collaboration workshop to expand and grow the show